Thank you. All right. So now we'll turn to Tony, who will
Hey,
introduce himself in this workshop. Thanks, Tony.
all right. Thanks, Snehal. Well, hey, everybody. We're very sorry we couldn't be in Park City today. Usually about this time of the year, we're planning a really big party and event, and we couldn't do that. So we thought, Snehal came up with this fantastic idea of what can we do to just have some fun and really just kind of get together and build a project. And we came up with the idea of pinhole cameras, so that's what we've sent to everybody today. It's the ZEISS lensless lens, say that 3 times fast. But we're going to talk about that today, and I thought it'd be a bit of a good crossover to be able to get one of our ZEISS ambassadors from the photo side to kind of take us through how she approaches pinhole photography and photography in general. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce a woman who works with our photography section. She is one of our ZEISS ambassadors, like I said. Her name is Tracy Page, and she is primarily a headshot and portrait photographer, but also does a lot of good work in fine art photography as well. So Tracy, why don't you go ahead and take the floor and tell us all about yourself?
And of course, now I can hear my dogs starting to bark. So if you guys can hear them, I'm sorry that it was like they were on cue. So like Tony said, I am a headshot and portrait photographer in the Atlanta southeastern market. I shoot occasionally in New York and LA as well. I work with probably some of the actors you see come across your lenses on your side of the world. I work with actors all over the US. I think I work with actors that are pretty much on every major network right now. A lot of not major networks and movies. We don't have a lot of features coming out, but we are a very busy market in Atlanta. We are mostly back to work right now, so it's been extremely busy. Um, we are all the content providers, all of us, and the world has binge watched all of our content. So luckily, I'm sold out already for February and starting to sell into March. So it's been a really busy period of time for me. I also love light, and so one of the things I do in my spare time is that I experiment with, on the fine art side, I experiment with like studies of lighting. So just recently, there's a program that we just did for B&H where we did one light across just kind of like a single zoomed plane to be able to just show how that light looks and works and how to get it set up. We used flats as cookies, and it was a fun experiment. We did it as a live demo, and I just love doing that kind of stuff. So you get a chance, go check me out on Instagram, Tracy Bosworth Page. I would love that. And now we're going to switch over to Pinhole a little bit, which I will admit, when Zeiss called and asked me if I would do this, I haven't done pinhole photography since high school. I think I talked about it in college. I don't know if I actually shot any in college. And in high school, we would, all build the pinhole box and we would look into them. We wouldn't necessarily expose film or paper. So it seemed like a pretty simple concept. But I think where I was as a high school photographer versus where I am now is a completely different beast. So what I thought was going to be a really simple process, take out this pinhole camera, expose some great images, turned out to be quite complicated. So I kind of want to take you through my journey a little bit with that. And I am going to screen share if that's okay. And we're going to go to the keynote presentation. If you guys will just give me a second to get into play. All right, so pinhole photography, and please, if you have questions, please, feel free to ask them at any point during the presentation. I'm not that kind of person that you can't interrupt, so I'm happy to stop and discuss anything at any point. So I'm going to start with, I don't know if you can really see this now that I've gone small, but Zeiss sent me this really cool pinhole camera to play with for the last few weeks. And I have had an absolute blast with this thing. And maybe I should stop screen sharing so you can see it a little bit better. Can you see me okay on that, Snehal?
It might be better if you stop screen share and show people, Tracy. And then I also have some photographs that I think were taken with that. I can also share
Yeah,
as
and
well.
I've got those in my
Oh, great. Oh, you
presentation
do. Okay.
too.
Great.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to get out of this so I can't see my mouse when
There you
I'm
go.
okay. So this baby is, it's made by the lensless camera manufacturer, and they have a variety of cameras. And this one is their normal or 150 millimeter. And you put a film back, and I have a sample film back. You put the film back, and this is just, it's a real simple operation. Take the wood off, and you put the film back on, and the dowels go back in to secure it. And it's got a little bit of padding in there to keep it dark. And then just, it's 4x5 film back. So you just basically, you know, you've got it loaded with the film or the paper. Take this out to expose it, flip the little thing open, and then put it back when you're done. This particular camera is very slow.
Do they call that the dark slide? Is it still called the dark slide?
I think it is.
Nice.
Welcome to the dark slide. Anyway, these are, you load these in a dark room, really, really simple, easy to load, easy to go into this thing. I could still smell the stain that they treated this with. It's like every time I open the back, it's like, whoo, man, this thing's overwhelming. Really easy to use, real simple to load. At 150 millimeters, the aperture on this is 420. So this is a really, really small aperture. And then I have been using with this, I'm doing my little bit of ZEISS promo. I have my ZEISS box behind me. I have been using this Ilford paper, Ilford Harman direct positive paper. And we made the decision for me to use this instead of film because I could just go upstairs and develop it and see what I had. And since I only had, you know, a couple of weeks for this whole process, it was important for me not to wait for the film to come back. I live in the middle of nowhere, everybody. I live near the Okefenokee Swamp. I'm 45 minutes from where they filmed Deliverance. If we drive off the side of our roads here, we're basically in swampland.
You're listening to banjos, yeah.
Yeah, we're listening to banjos all the time. So having some place to develop film near me is not a possibility. So I had to do this. So I turned my laundry room into a dark room. I would basically expose 4 sheets, go to the laundry room and develop my paper and see what I had, and then, you know, go expose another 4 sheets. Some of these images took me up to 13 hours to do. So very, very slow process. You have your cameras that we sent you, and I think I've got this in the presentation, so I'm probably skipping ahead. The cameras that we sent you are, I think it's 130 aperture, and we've also sent you 400 speed film. So if you are using that, it is going to be a lot faster. Those cameras may be a little difficult to use. So if you really like doing this pinhole process, you might want to invest. I think this camera is only like 60 bucks. It's not a huge expense. So, so that may be something worth investing. So back to the slideshow presentation. Okay, once I'm here though, I can't get back and forth. It's really, it's not easy. All right, hit play so you can see the pretty part and not all the stuff on my screen. All right, so the first part of this, the first thing we want to tell you about is to use this to spark some joy. This completely took me out of my everyday world and put me into something different. I have overwhelmingly enjoyed the last couple of weeks. I have been like a kid in the candy store. You know, I feel like at work, I'm just doing one thing all the time. I'm doing headshots or editorial portraits. I'm really, really good at that one thing, but I don't get the chance to see the world from a different perspective. And this Pinhole Photography project really gave me a chance to see things differently. So if you need a break, use this to restart your creative self. I think this was a really, really great project to be able to do that. And I'm looking forward to continuing this. I hope you didn't want this pinhole camera back because I'm keeping it. That's okay, right?
I won't tell anybody.
Okay. So this really changes your perspective. And I think, you know, sometimes it's important that we do change our perspective. We do get so set in seeing things one way that to be able to change our perspective is a really important part of our creative growth. And this forces you to change your perspective. One of the things that was a little hard on me, and again, this is, you know, me versus the 16-year-old me, is I think the 16-year-old me probably just slid the door open and didn't really know much about what my lenses did. And the adult me knows, I shoot every day with I have it right here, with a ZEISS Otis 100 millimeter lens. I know exactly what that looks like. So when I read that this is a 150 millimeter lens, I know pretty much what that looks like. So I approximated the lens on my camera, put my camera in front of the pinhole camera so that I could kind of see what I was going to get, and looked at that, and then took my first pinhole image, and it was not the same. The pinhole is not, it says it's 150 millimeter, but it's not. It's more of a normal range, and you see a lot more around the image. And you'll see as I go through the presentation, I've given you some examples. You see a lot more around this image than what you would see with a 150 millimeter lens if you're using that on a camera. So that was a really odd objects where it was that saying in the mirror, objects are much closer than they appear. In the pinhole camera, they're much further than they appear. So it's just like the opposite direction. So I found that I really had to move my objects. If I was doing a still life, for example, I had to move it really close to the camera. And it's really weird because you'll see, I mean, I thought I was pretty close to the camera, but they look like this teeny little object in the back distance in this huge amount of black space. That didn't really work for me. Trust your meter. I'm going to show you the very first image I did came out completely black because, I used my meter. Where's my meter? I used my meter. I put I converted the image using the little Pinhole app, and it said I needed to expose the image for a couple hours, and I was like, I'm not doing that. So I exposed it for a half hour, which I thought was more than reasonable. And of course, I got a completely black piece of paper out of my developer. So that didn't work out very well. So metering options. So I found that contrary to what we probably do in real life, I think in most cases, we're going to incidentally meter things, or at least I do in my world. I'm metering at the point of the subject and not at the point of the camera. With the pinhole camera, I found that it was much more accurate to meter at the point of the camera and not the point of the subject. So the reflective metering was a much more accurate approach for me. And you will see as we go through the presentation, I'll kind of show you which ones I did which with, because you can definitely see a difference. So trust your meter, use it at the point of the camera. Okay, so my meter will let me set an ISO of 3, and I've just got a standard Sekonic meter, nothing fancy. But I can set an ISO of 3, but I can't set an aperture of 420. That just doesn't even exist on this. So what I did was I set my aperture to f8. So I metered everything at f8, and then I used a little app from a company called Mr. Pinhole. It's actually just a website. You put in your whatever your app is, your exposure, your f-stop, and it converts everything for you. So then you just look on the chart. If I was 1/15 of a second at f8, then I just looked across to see what it would be at 420 and made those adjustments. I think Mr. Pinhole is the one that I was using. Snehal, you were using Pinhole Assist?
Yes, I did. So if you can get an app on at least on iPhone and probably on Android as well, it's called Pinhole Assist. And it's really easy to use. And the benefit also, it has a little interface it meters for you. So you can get a something metering from your iPhone itself, as long as you have a nice clean lens and stuff. And it kind of gives you a frame size too. So like the nice thing is on this format, it's a 20 millimeter lens, and the one that you are making, and it's 35 millimeter format. So your phone can actually give you an image of kind of what the frame would look like. So that was the other benefit of doing that as well.
So now I wish I'd downloaded that app. And I tried the My Light meter, and the first time I did it,
okay.
I compared it to my actual meter, and it was pretty on. But then the next time I tried to use it, it was way off. So that didn't really, metering it from my phone didn't work so much. But for the point of view, that would have been worth it, because I had really no idea what I was seeing.
And you put in, like, of course, you can change things. Like you mentioned that if you look at the box of the camera, it tells you what your f-stop is, focal length, and aperture. And it actually asks for all this information. You put it in, and then it tries to figure out things for you. So it kind of tells you how long you're supposed to expose. Now, I used the rule of thumb as well. So I did both, just like you. I really wanted to get it accurate, but I have no way of telling because I have to send it to a lab, right? So I can't really tell. So, they do have the, the little thing on the back of the box that kind of tells you how long, if you had ISO 100 film. So I just kind of did a calculation in my head too, because, you could calculate from 100 to 400. It's halves and doubles, right? So, you can kind of figure out what it should be. And I don't know. Let's see what happens.
I know it's going to be the magic. I have some in my box too, and I'm completely curious to see what happens, which is why I shot the paper, so that I wouldn't have to deal with that. Yeah.
Can I mention something also, Tracy? With the paper, and I just want to let people know that the 150 millimeter lens on that size format, because that image circle is quite large, and that paper sees a lot of that image circle, right? So your 150 lens, like you said, it still looks pretty normal to you. So that would be, a bigger format than what you would get in, let's say, this Hasselblad that I have. This is a smaller format than that. So you can imagine when you have an even larger format, your normal lens starts getting, more telephoto. So I just want to mention that. Very interesting.
Yeah, no, I was really, because I haven't really shot with large format, and so this is 4x5, and so it's been a long time, and so I was really kind of blown away the first couple of images that came out, and I thought, okay, I have to rethink this a little bit. This has been a while, and it's like riding a bike a little bit, but it's been fun. Now I want to know if I can take this paper and put it into a Hasselblad. I've been trying to look that up the last few days. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. Apertures. So again, I think this just recovers what we've already talked about. The lens I was using the app was a 420. The one that you're using, if you're using the camera that we sent you, is f130. And I talked again about the lenses. You're using a wide angle. If you've got one of these little things, where's my camera? It's set up it's like a super wide. It's a 20 millimeter lens. So you should have fun angles. A friend of mine who's a professor who teaches this a lot told me that he tells his students to go out and do a lot of street photography and try to get low angles on the cars. And he said it's just a lot of fun when you get a street full of motion and stuff, especially if there's slow motion, so you can kind of see it track across the film. And he said that the low angle also gives you some really cool images. So I hope everybody has fun with these. ISO, your ISO does matter, so make sure you are putting that into the calculation. I was using an ISO of 3, so it really slowed me down quite a bit. Like I said earlier, I had some 13-hour exposures, which was a very interesting lesson for me also. Of course, with this ISO 400 speed film, you're not going to be that slow, so you should actually, I was a little too slow to really be able to get any portraits, but I think with this you'd probably be able to get some portraits. Although this does not have it doesn't have anything to put it on a tripod, and you really do have to be pretty steady with this, which might give you the argument for doing this from the ground up so that you don't have to try to balance it too long.
By the way, Tracy, some of the cell phone holders actually can hold if they're the kind that twist and tight. So you can
that's a great idea.
And then have the 1/4-20 at the bottom.
Oh, that is, I saw there's like a model up from this that comes with a plastic plate so that you can put it into a tripod, but this one did not have that. And if anybody wants to try with the positive paper, again, I'm using, this is Ilford Harman, and the decision to do this was because there was no film developing, and I was able to develop it directly. And at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you how I set that up. That was a real simple process, except that it took my laundry room over, and my family, after a couple of weeks, was ready to wash underwear, so they were wanting to kick me out of the laundry room. So this was very much a lesson for me in stopping and seeing the light, because I'm metering it in a completely different way. I actually found myself, I was going through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through in a neighboring town, because we don't have any here, but I was going through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and it was really kind of rainy and misty, and in my head I'm thinking, at f15 I'm at 15 seconds. it's funny how that's just really shifted things for me in terms of light, and really broadened my instinct on how to read the light myself. On a bright sunny day, which is what I would recommend using this for, your exposures are really, really quick. Even with my ISO of 3, I was able, in aperture of 420, I was able to get exposures in 44 seconds. But just a little bit of cloud cover, and it was taking me 15 minutes to hours. And I found myself the other day, I pulled into a cemetery to do an image, and I thought this will be quick, and it ended up being a 51-minute exposure. So it's sometimes just a little bit of cloud cover, and it's going to change your exposure dramatically. I supplemented my light source with the same light that's on me now, which is from Nanlite. It is their 68B, and you'll see it in some of my images. I love this thing. It's just this wonderful constant light. But the great thing for this is when I had a 13-hour exposure, I was lighting it with the Nanlite, and being LED, it did not get hot. So even after 13 hours of running constantly, it was still pretty cool. So that's been a really great little incidental find. And I learned the hard way to think about the position of the sun during my exposures, because in some of my exposures, you'll see, it started out at one f-stop and ended up at another, or one shutter speed, but ended up at another. And the sun basically moved into position that it, were overexposed areas of my paper. And I wasn't thinking through that when I started that whole process of those long exposures. So that taught me something else altogether. So this is the pinhole camera that I have, the one I was trying to show earlier, and it's from the lensless camera manufacturer company. And just learning so much cool stuff about this company and the pinhole cameras. So if you are really think that this is something you might want to get into, I think B&H and Adorama both carry this. Probably most of the camera stores will have it, and it has been a blast to work with. I only have 2 of the film holders. I probably should have gotten a few more of those. So in the future, I'll buy myself a few more of those so that I can expose more than 4 sheets of film at a time. This was the first shot that I set out to do, and I decided that that a half hour should be enough. And I won't even show you my shot of it because it was completely black. So obviously that was my first hard lesson learned. This was the second shot I did, and this was in bright sunlight. This was a 10-minute exposure. Sorry, there's a little bend in the sheet, so I tried to photograph these and scan them, but you can see all of the bends and twerks. But I was really impressed with the detail that I was able to get, and that the water is not blown out, and that you can see the silos, and you can see the ships, and you can see the bridge. You can't really see the white spans of the bridge, but I think if I'd exposed it just a little bit less, you might have been able to see that, but then I would have been losing detail on the water too, and some on the trees. So there was a little bit of a give and take. It's just not as accurate, and we're learning that, you kind of just have to anticipate what you're going to get, and you just have fun with it, not be so, if it doesn't do exactly what you thought it was going to do, that's okay. This is a whole different learning experience.
Tracy, that's really amazing. Can you go back to that? Wow. So right side's the pinhole camera. Wow. That is actually really, really nice.
Thank you.
And I know how difficult it is to get a shot with the pinhole camera. So
that was my
great.
Third shot off the roll. This was the one right before it, which of course I can't develop to see what they look like.
Right.
But you can kind of see it. But in this one, I had the ships moving. Well, I was hoping that the ships moving would give me some ghosting, because there was a ship moving the whole time I had this shot going. But what happened was the wind was really kind of buffeting, because I'm right on the Savannah River, right at the mouth of the Savannah River. So this is the Intercoastal Waterway, and the camera was moving back and forth and shaking. So this is just really shaky. But the next one, I moved my camera a little bit, and so this is the one that you're seeing. And
And
I
you can
moved my
kind of see
camera.
the crane is a little soft. You can see that something that has that kind of structure. You know, it was
Yeah.
either that was moving or you were moving. You can kind of
Well,
tell.
this time it was, for this one, it was actually pretty still. So I think I
Okay.
just slightly overexposed it.
Hmm.
But this was only my third sheet of, on the camera. So I was really happy. And of course, I shot it on Saturday morning and I didn't get home to see it until Sunday night. So,
Mhm.
I loaded up my sheets, my 4 sheets, because I only got 4 sheets per time. Loaded up my sheets, went to Savannah on Friday night, shot
Mhm.
them on Saturday, and came home Sunday and developed them to see what I had. So it was an exciting process.
Very
I
nice.
thought
And
there
Tracy,
was going
just
to,
to clarify, was this shot with the wooden pinhole camera or the version
yes.
we sent you?
So all of these shots that you're seeing were shot with a wooden pinhole camera because the film is still in the one that you sent me. So I haven't been able to get that developed yet. So
Got it.
and the fourth one, I was going to stop on my way home and shoot something, and it had gotten really overcast by then. And so I get to what I want to shoot, and I pull out the camera and I look at the exposure, and I realize it's going to be 3 hours. So I just threw the camera back in the car and kept on driving. So that didn't happen. Let's see. So the next day I decided to shoot my shed. Wait, I think there we go. So I decided I was going to shoot the shed behind the house. This is actually not my shed, it's my neighbor's, but I thought the vines would make a really cool pattern. But the first thing I did was underexpose it quite a bit. So I tried to expose it from the point of the shed. So this was me learning that I needed to expose to meter from my camera instead of from the subject. So that was where my camera was for that shot. And then the next morning I moved it here because it was a little brighter. And again, this was metering from the point of the object. And then that's metering from the point of the camera. So you can see the difference. So I got some there metering from the point of the camera, but it was a lot more accurate metering from the, metering from the shed, but more accurate from the camera. So I definitely would recommend that. That was a little bit of learning curve for me. And then I decided to do a still life. So I set it up in my dining room, and you can see the distance is not great, but there was that nan light that I was using to light it with. And that was from my Sony with my ZEISS Otis on it. And that was what I got. So there was a huge difference between that and that. And I was pretty much set up for 150, but that was what I got. The other thing I noticed is that the candle was so exposed compared to everything else. So I moved everything closer and did it again. And on this one, I left the candle out for most of the exposure, and then I just put it in for the last few minutes. And I think that this is a 3-hour exposure. So it was there for quite a while. And I really like it. I kind of like the antique feel of the whole exposure. And I know it's a little soft, but you can still see a lot of the detail. And I don't know. I'm enthralled with it. I might even frame that one. I think it's pretty cool. So then I decided I was setting up for an overnight exposure. So of course this is my foyer, so I will apologize now for the state of my house. And my family could not go up or down the stairs for a day. They had to use the back staircase. So I can't say everybody was really thrilled with me. But I set this up with the nan light as the main light, and I left it up for, I metered pretty much to the light instead of to the ambient light. And I left it up for 13 hours. And that was from my camera, from the Sony. And this is the image from the Pinhole. And I really love that you can see all of the veins in the vase. I'm really happy with the way the whole thing turned out. That was a good moment to develop that.
You can clearly see like the grain of the paper, the film itself.
You really can. This was hanging in the dark room, so you can still see the moisture. It was a little bit better picture of the picture than what my scanner did, but yeah, I'm very happy of the way this turned out. So this was my first attempt at a 13-hour exposure.
fantastic.
Tracy, Neil Gibb had a couple questions. The
Sure.
first one was, how are you developing your paper, tray or drum?
I'm developing in trays, and I have a shot of that at the end so that you could see my little setup in my laundry room. My family
Perfect.
was not happy with me because it was on the top of the washing machine. But I have 8x10 trays, you know, because I have darkroom equipment. But for this, because you know, 5x7 tray uses a lot less chemical than an 8x10 tray, I just went ahead for less than $10. I bought a set of 5x7 trays and just used those so that I didn't have to put as much chemical in it each time. And that saved a little bit. I mean, the chemical is so cheap that it's really like splitting hairs, I know, but I'm you know, old Italian in me just hates wasting money. So I've always been fast. I'm sorry, go ahead, Katia.
Sorry, one more question from Neil. Is the actual pinhole a metal hole or a zone plate?
It is let's look. It is a metal plate.
Perfect. And that's it for now.
Okay, all right. And the ones in the cameras that we sent you are also punched into metal plates, so it's going to be very similar, except not quite as small. So I've always been fascinated with the light in my bathroom. I love the light through the stained glass windows, so I just kind of wanted to see what it would look like with a pinhole camera. One exposure I did with the camera outside of the tub, and then I moved the camera, I actually put the camera inside the tub to get it a lot closer. And these were, I want to say these were about 3-hour exposures. So that was the one with the camera outside of the tub slightly. A little overexposed. Again, I think I metered at the window and not at the camera because I wasn't really sure how that light coming through the window and not being through the rest of the room was going to be handled. And then the next one I did, I metered at the camera, and you can see that there's a huge difference in the way it exposed. And this one I'm a lot happier with. I just really like the image. I like that you can almost see a little bit of the garage outside of the window. It's got that little bit of a reflection. And it's, I think for pinhole, this is pretty sharp. I was really happy with it.
Yeah, this is quite sharp actually. And what's nice about this is that you really have a dynamic range and you're seeing quite a bit of information. You see the dappling of the window and the, you know, the kind of texture that it has. You're seeing, you know, some information from outside. I mean, this is really an amazing picture, and no one would even think that you did this on a pinhole camera. I mean, it looks like just a cool artistic, you know, shot on film shot to me.
And I think that's one of the things that has intrigued me the most about this camera is that it has really made me think about what I'm seeing and see it differently. You know, because these aren't things that I would shoot in my everyday world. And instead I'm walking around the house going, oh my God, I should do that. That's so cool. And I'm seeing everything from this different perspective. It's been a really fascinating, I just have to say thank you, ZEISS, for choosing me to do this, because it's been a fascinating journey for the last couple of weeks. I have loved every moment of this. This one was not so successful for me. I thought the fig leaf growing on the fencing outside of the house would be a really, this is on a brick column, I thought it would be a really lovely thing to photograph. But I didn't, you know, the green area was just, you know, the white area didn't meter the same way as the dark area. It was not enough consistency. I think I learned a little bit that the lighting needs to be a little bit more consistent in these kind of episodes. And I wanted to go back and redo this for everybody, but it has rained pretty much for the last week. So I haven't gotten a chance to go back and redo a lot of the things I wanted to redo. So I apologize for the weather. So this is this tree outside of the, I don't know, in my brain and my imagination, I thought I would get more of the tree, but we have heard from the person who had the house before us that this may be the tallest sycamore tree in the state of Georgia, if not one of the tallest sycamore trees in the state of Georgia. So this was as much of the sycamore tree as I could get. Of course, you can see, if you look real closely, you can see all the little sycamore balls hanging off the tree, which are the bane of the existence of our landscape guy. But it just, I loved the play of the dark and the light on the tree. I loved the contrast. So this was kind of a fun thing to get. And I did not get a pullback of that. This was another still life I shot, and unfortunately, it looks a lot better. I don't know if I can find it. The actual sheet looks better than what you see here. It just didn't scan very well. So that is the actual sheet. You can see it. It actually has a lot more detail, and I think is much lovelier than what the scan looks like. So I should have done that again. I'm sorry.
Tracy, Pianki in the audience is asking, I've never worked with film. Is it possible for me to practice exposing my own photos?
Yes, yes, it is. You can, through just a little bit more of a process than what I've been doing, you can use film and process your own film. You can do 35mm, or you can do the 4x5, and then expose your film and make a direct positive. It's just one more step than what I was doing, but it is not a hard step. So absolutely, I'm going to buy some 4x5 sheet film to go into this baby and keep playing. So please do that. It uses pretty much the same chemicals. It's not an unsimilar process, just an extra step. So I went to the cemetery by our house, and I couldn't get a person to hold still long enough for me, so I thought maybe I could do a statue. So this is, you can see how close the camera is to the statue, and also, you know, the light was kind of blowing it out toward the bottom, but I really wanted that angle in the face, so I did it anyway. But you can kind of see there what I was able to get. Again, this is one of those where it probably looks better. I don't know if I can. I've made a mess over here with all the stuff that I've got here. It looks better on the actual sheet than the scan looked. So that's the sheet. But the detail, I thought the gray.
Actually, I know it's a trouble, but do you mind, Tracy, going to full screen? We would love to see that shot because it looks so much different on the paper. Like, wow, that's a.
I know, it is much different on the paper. All right, hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Stop share.
There we go.
Let me try to get it centered.
Look at that.
Yeah, it was just, I got that out, and when I was developing it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is cool. I love the tonal variety you can see in that. The dynamic range was just really nice. So again, this is trusting your meter and metering at the camera. That made a big difference in the way that the images. I'll pop this one up from the scanner too, but I'm going to show this to you first here while I'm full screen. So this one is just very contrasty, but this lady was like, none of the images I took of her, this is the only one that came out, and I didn't get near the detail that I got of the other one. I don't know what was going on. I think, I'm going back to screen share. Where is this? I think there was a ghost, personally. And I was a little freaked out. I don't know if anybody follows me on Facebook or Instagram, but I talked about this on both. I literally was trying to get, let me get to that image. So the lady between the trees there, I was trying to do images of her, and everything I did, I went back 2 times and nothing really worked. There was always something that happened that just, I did one image where, well, here I will show you. Yeah, there she is right in the middle, just completely blew out. This was the position of the sun moved during my exposure and completely blew it out. So that just really, I love the image though. I'm really happy with it, but it was like that statue, I couldn't get anything to work. And that one from another angle, and she's overexposed, but everything around her looks fine. I just couldn't seem to get this to work, but I love the way the trees looked, and I like the softness and the eeriness of the whole image. I really had fun in this cemetery.
This looks like, Tracy, this shot looks like it came from like a 1930s, you know, feature film about some main character getting killed by the mob or something.
You know, and I was thinking about this as I was out there. I thought, you know, because I had these things floating around in my head about what was going on, and you know, all the log lines you can come up with from doing this project. You know, if you're really struggling with the blank page syndrome where you just cannot get words out to put on a page, go do something like this, because this might completely rewire your brain for a little while, and you might come up with something really interesting from this experience. And
So gorgeous, Tracy. We had a couple questions. First from George Joe Blove. For the paper you're using, how significant is reciprocity failure in determining proper exposure, given multi-hour exposures?
So the reciprocity failure, I wasn't noticing in the paper. I do understand with this camera that it is a problem with film. So you want to extend your exposure time a little bit longer for that. In the paper though, I noticed it seemed like it was pretty accurate. And when I stuck to what my meter told me to do, I actually got the most dynamic range.
And what is this paper that gives a positive image? Is it Ilford Harman?
It is. It's Ilford Harman, and it's they call it direct positive paper, and that's exactly what it is. And they make it for the 8x10 camera as well. So they make several different sizes. And I have a friend who saw me post about this on Facebook, and she's sending me her 8x10 camera to play with. So I'm excited. She said I could have it on indefinite loan. So I'm pretty happy about that. So this is another.
See every blade of grass. It's really a lot more detail. I would have thought.
You can see. I mean, but again, this is I'm using what my meter told me at the point of the camera instead of at the point of the subject, and I just had a lot more success with that. But my statue is not visible again. I just couldn't. This was right up on her. And this is the one I think I just showed you. So right there, and that's what I got. And again, you know, same processes I'm using everywhere else, and she just didn't give me a lot of detail. So, so I went back to the cemetery again, and this is me the next day trying to shoot, or a couple of days later, because we had a couple of days of rain, back to shooting the cemetery. And on the side of the cemetery, because I'll get to that one in a second, on the side of the camera on the left is the Ashley crypt or vault, and that's the Ashley Slater family, and their mansion is like directly across the street from my house. And there's lots of ghost stories and lots of creepiness. So about the time that I realized I was standing next to the Ashley vault, I think all of the creepy ideas really started entering my head. And me trying to shoot this. And so the first piece of paper I shot, it was a 15-minute exposure. I mean, it looks like a bright sunny day, but it was not that bright and sunny. And so it was about a 15-minute exposure. And the first sheet of paper I shot jammed when I tried to cover it up. When I put the slider in, it jammed. And the paper ended up falling completely inside the camera. So that was completely ruined. So then I shot another exposure, waited my 15 minutes and went to close the camera and realized I had never opened the camera. So that was not good. So I did that again on the third exposure, and this was, I think, pretty much what I got. I mean, it's cool, but you still can't see the statue. So it was, and I ended up I saw something nearby that I got sidetracked, and I almost overexposed it. So I just couldn't seem to get that statue. And so by then I think I had one sheet left that day, and I was completely freaked out. So I focused on the vault, and there is a string. You can't really see it here. You can see it on my original. When we get back, I will show it to you. There's a string on there, and at the top, and there's kind of like this old Southern thing about putting a string on the crypt so that if the ghost were to get out, it would move the string and you'd be able to tell that there was movement. And this thing is padlocked, but that really creeps me out. And I think after that, I just wanted to get out of the cemetery. But I do love this image because I love not only how freaky it is, and it kind of takes you back to the 1920s, 1930s, but the dynamic range of the image is really incredible. And you'll see there's a little blurriness here from my scanner on the image itself, which I'll show you in a minute. you can see the patterns in the glass. It's just really cool how much detail you can get with this pinhole camera. And this was about a 15-minute exposure.
Tracy, did you notice any differences in depth of field or sharpness based on how wide the shot was or distance to the subject?
I really, I probably had more depth of field than I expected. But I think I was getting the depth of field more out of the dynamic range than I was in the depth, in the actual depth. So one of the things the pinhole does is it kind of eliminates the depth and focuses everything. But I think because of the lighting fall off, I wasn't experiencing that quite as much. And also just, you know, the depth of the dynamic range here, I think gives you that kind of modeling feeling. So you feel like there's depth to the columns because you can see the shadows and you can see the highlights. And I think that really helps. So I think if you're looking for those highlights and those shadows, you're going to be able to project some depth.
Tracy, there's another question, and I'll ask this one because it goes to the depths of your very soul. And it's from Lindsay Allison. It says, did you just sit around the cemetery for 15 hours or did you leave the camera?
So the longest exposure that I did at the cemetery was 45 minutes. And I was texting Tony the whole time going, I'm sitting in a cemetery for 45 minutes for you. So
Yeah.
I was completely creeped out. So a lot of these exposures were about 15 minutes each. And then a few of them were, one was 45 minutes. And I did sit in my car. I set my camera up and then I parked where I could see the camera. You know, it's a very old cemetery, but there were actively, you know, there were funerals happening while I was there. So I was trying to be very respectful and stay in the older parts of the cemetery and not cross the people there that were there grieving. But I did get a little creeped out and wait in my car for a while. Plus the last exposure I did, it was really cold and I was freezing. So we were down to what, like, well, I think I told you we were at 71 degrees, but I think it was more like in the high 50s.
Yeah, I don't.
Tony was playing that little tiny banjo. Going,
Right.
I have no sympathy for you. I'm like, it's chilly, and he's like, no, it's not. What did you say? It was like 9 degrees in Beckett at that point?
Yeah, we had 15 degrees. We have 17 and we're on, you know, I think about 16 inches of snow right now. So it's pretty crazy in New York.
It's 41 degrees here now, and I've been complaining all day. Our high was 44. So moan, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch.
Right.
So the last couple of shots, because it was raining yesterday and I still wanted to do some more, this one I set up on my front porch. This exposure was, I think it was about 3 hours, 7 minutes. And I used the nan light because at f8 it was going to be like a 6-hour exposure and I wanted to do one more after that. So I just didn't feel like waiting through it. So I boosted the light with the nan light. I didn't want to wait that long. But just focused on that little bottle, and that was what I was able to get. And this, you'll see the water dripping off of it. I literally took a picture of this while it was hanging up drying after I got it out of the chemicals. But I'm so excited about the detail on the metal, on that, the metal grid on that little tiny bottle. I love what this did. I love how black everything else is around it, that it's just the bottle. This is something unique, I think, to the pinhole experience.
Yeah, that rich, deep color. It's just, that's because, you know what people don't realize is that it doesn't matter how much glass you put on in front of or what kind of lens you use on a camera, it's still a lens. It's still changing reality a little bit in some way, shape, or form. And then just having a hole instead, it's like it's a mirror image of reality. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. It's just a mirror image of reality without anything in the way. And I think it's different than what we see in a lens. A lens, of course, magnifies the light, makes it faster, so you get a faster exposure, you know, much quicker than a hole would. But this is just wondrous to see this kind of detail. I wish I could hold it in my hand.
I will send it to you. And then I'm using the shot that I did while it was drip drying. So you've got the water pattern, but I loved this because you could see the texture on the paper versus the, so this was, my husband brought in some flowers from our yard before the freeze happened. So these are, I did this yesterday from these flowers, and just the crystal vase was a lot more clear than I thought it was going to be. I thought the focus was going to be the flowers, but you can really see the vase. And I put this in the open shade of our porch on the side. I just shot this. So what you see in the white vertical lines are actually the columns from our, we live in a big old Southern Victorian house. So the white columns on our porch. So that's just the camellias from out in the yard. And then I did a scan too, non-wet scan of the same thing. Oh, I don't have that in here. I think this is actually the very last shot I did, and I think this is my favorite one. I just, the detail on it, I'll hold that up when we get done. The detail was pretty cool. And then Snehal and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the cameras that we sent you. The kit requires a lot of patience. Where did I put the camera? It's here somewhere. Snehal, I've lost it. Oh, it's under all this prints. No, it's not. I have lost it. I've literally lost the camera. It's here somewhere. You guys know I had it because I held it up before.
It's all right. I got mine here. Steven, do you have yours too with you? No, okay. Steven built one as well, so we got it right here.
I'm like, I just don't know what happened. It's got to be here. I've done something with it. Anyway, the kit requires a lot of patience.
It's in the cemetery.
Yeah, everyone's knob is going to look like something messed up, and
I know
it's not just me.
No, and I don't.
But it works.
Oh, it's in my lap. That's where it is. My knob is taped together. I taped my camera knob with black electrical tape. So there you go. That's what we did. So the kit, the opening paragraph of the instructions actually say good luck. We had a good laugh about this. We recommend that before you start this process, that you have some, you need strong glue, you need double-sided tape, and you need some gaff tape or electrical tape or something to, I used electrical tape to kind of light seal the corners. So you can kind of see it there, and also to do the knob. So those are some things you want to have handy. Some of the parts are really tiny, and you know, you're gluing a really tiny area. So to keep from gluing your fingers together, use some toothpicks or some Q-tips. Almost twice I almost glued my fingers together, and I was using Tony's name in vain a lot because I think this was his idea. So that's what he's there for. He's there for us to abuse. And then the other thing is you're going to need some clamps. My studio kit is in Atlanta, and I'm 4 hours south, so I was only able to muster up one clamp around the house. But I did find a box of my daughter's Japanese themed binder clips, so I had lots of binder clips on pieces to hold it together. The rewind spool, this has actually got a spool inside of it, and the spool came apart the first time I tried to stick the film into it. So you basically—
But Tracy, just so people don't get confused, let's make sure we say this is the winding, but it's not the rewind, because you cannot
I'm sorry,
rewind.
it's the winding. It's
You
to
can-
wind the film,
yeah.
not rewind.
Unfortunately, this particular model of camera does not come with the rewind that you would normally use to wind the film back into the film canister, which we're going to talk about, you know, a workaround. But if you buy it online, like another paper product like this, there's an upgraded version of this camera you can buy with the rewind. Yeah.
And there's actually some online that have plastic knobs too. So I would even look for one of those, so you're not trying to tape together the knob that you unsuccessfully tried to glue. So you have to stick your film into the two, Stephen is showing us, into the two pieces of spool. And so you're connecting the spool. It tells you to glue the spool pieces on each end, leaving a gap in the middle. But the first time I stuck my film in there, the whole thing just came unglued. So I ended up having to re-glue it. And then I cut electrical tape in half, and I wrapped each end with electrical tape.
That's exactly what I did too. I put tape underneath where it has to go, and then that tab I held in place with tape instead of glue, because I had the same problem. So
yeah, it just—
that's a good idea.
So the other thing
I think people get confused that maybe that tab that's confusing in the instructions, that they might glue it down the whole thing. So it's like you built a part of the wind-up spool, and then you built a little tiny little leg of it. That's actually not glued or taped entirely, just at the ends to leave a gap to put your film in to wind
Right.
it. So,
You have
so your
to be
film
able
has to
to
fit inside.
stick the film in.
Maybe Stephen
into
could hold
there.
up that picture again one more time, because that's just, I think that's just the most confusing part. Yeah, that tab, when you put it on, it will remain separate. It's not gonna, so he's gonna glue it where his thumb is, and then at the very bottom, and that way it winds up the, there you go. Thank you for that. Does anyone need to make that bigger, or can you see that video? Maybe we should, I'm sorry, Tracy, maybe we should cut to full screen again.
That's okay. I can.
Because I think this is important. And Stephen, and we need you to talk so that your screen gets focused on.
Hold on a second. Let me just stop share. Okay, go ahead.
All right, sorry, I gotta find it one more time. Yeah, so originally there's two tabs. There's the big post, and then there's another tab that sits on top of it. And then it's eventually gonna do this. The film has to go through between both of those tabs. And that's where I got confused. I thought it was a structural thing. I taped them both together, and then I had to literally cut it with an X-Acto knife because I didn't understand what they were doing.
And it warns you in the instructions, but it's like toward the end of the paragraph, and you may have already zoomed right past it before you get there.
Kind of like that.
That's probably the most complicated part about the build, I would say, is the one.
Oh, I thought the most complicated part was getting the back on after I put the film in.
Yes, that too.
That took me a while. So,
That too.
and then Snehal and I, we think we talked about this. I had read somewhere that to advance the film 1.5 turns, and I think you said 2. And then when I was actually doing it in real practice, I did 2, because then it was kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to mess it up. So we're not really sure how many exposures you're going to get off of it.
You should theoretically get the same number, right? Because the image circle should be for 35 millimeter. And theoretically, you should be getting approximately 30, maybe a little bit larger, because, you know, I don't think there's any, there's no mat inside to mat out the edges or anything. So you get a nice round image, I think. And then I'm sure the lab just kind of cuts it if they're, I have no idea.
We haven't
what happened because
we haven't developed it yet.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like, okay, there's no mat, right? Like there would be, even in the pinhole camera you have, the film itself is creating a mat, right? The edges. And in fact, in your photographs, you can see where the holder is. It kind of appears in the photograph, right? But I don't know what the case is with the pinhole, because there's no mat. So you could have like a round image on it. So you could have
But
like
it's
round
got
edges.
that box on the back, and I'm wondering if that cuts
Oh
it.
yeah, that's right. It did go
Yeah.
through a box, didn't it?
Yeah, because it's got a box. It's got like a square box. And I
Yes,
think that's
yes,
kind of
yes.
framing the image.
You're
But
right. You're
so
right. It goes through. It does go through a box, and you
getting
do.
the back on the camera, that was tough, because I had to get it around the inside box in between the two boxes. So that was really hard. When you take this film out of the camera, so you have a couple of options, because there is not a rewind, so you can't rewind it back into here from the camera itself. So if you have a bag, what are those bags called? I just lost the name of the bag.
Blackout bag.
Like a blackout or changing bag.
Changing bag. Thank you. I just couldn't come up, you know, all those years of having children, you would think changing would be just a natural for me, but the changing bag. So if you're doing it in the changing bag, you can do that. I was just going to take mine up into the laundry room, convert it into a dark room, and I have red bulbs so that I can see in there. And this is a little bit smaller than the one I've got in there now, but I mean, I think the bulb was like 10 or 11 bucks on Adorama and B&H. So if you're doing this yourself, you're going to have to rewind the film back in manually using your little spool end.
I think the technical term is doohickey.
I think I wrote that to you, didn't I? It's kind of like, and he was teasing me about my use of technical terms. Okay, so
It's right
Snehal
over
has
here.
Yeah.
a film key. I was looking for, so that he can make that process go faster. I was looking for a film key on the internet. I had a really hard time. I even looked up that brand Snehal, and I couldn't find one for sale.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything to approximate it. I did find somebody, maybe we could give dimensions too, that was building something that would work on eBay. He was using his 3D printer. And so those I've ordered, but they were supposed to be here today and they didn't arrive. So I was hoping to be able to show that to you. But you can find something that will work on eBay, I think.
I was going to suggest you could also use a flathead screwdriver as well.
Yes.
Just be gentle.
Yes.
Be gentle.
I actually saw somebody in a video using like a car key.
Yeah,
so
you could use a car key. Yeah.
That might work
as long
too.
as it's about that width.
If you're really industrious and you know
Or
somebody with a
uncut
3D printer.
key. What about an uncut key?
We should make these out of the 3D printer that we've got at the
office.
And we could give them to people who visit.
You guys are way overthinking this.
Yeah, we are. We totally are.
But yeah, no. One of the things is, and to everybody watching who's going to take this challenge with us, the camera itself is a fun project, and we're excited to see what you can get out of it. We do recommend, there's a couple of ways you can have the film developed into photos yourself, or if you want, you can send it to us, and we'll provide some information in email about where you can send either the roll of camera that you've rewound yourself, or even if you just want to put the entire camera of exposed film into a darkened packet and send it back to us, we'll take care of it for you. The end goal.
You may not get the camera back though.
That's true. Well, yeah, it might get destroyed in the process. Who knows?
But then you have two more. You have 2 more extra rolls of film to use in your film camera.
Yeah. So, but what we'd like to do is we'd like to see the photos that you get out of it. I mean, we're really excited about this project as much as we hope you are. So we invite you to share those photos with us, and we'll also put them all together in a Flickr account or something like that, so we can share it all as like a virtual gallery with everybody as well. This is a terrific project, and we're really excited to see the images that you can come up with through this camera.
Tony, we have not a question, but a remark here in the chat from Paul that says, "Don't use a red safe light when rewinding color film!" In exclamation mark.
Well, okay, then that's a good point, because I didn't know that, and I
think red light will work.
C41 myself, so
red light will work just fine with black and white for sure. But
it worked with my black and white, but.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't
maybe not for color
film myself.
Paul, you'll have to qualify that. We need proof of your exclamation mark. We need to know.
I know.
Send us an article online or a link so that people can learn as to what
one of
they
my
can
friends
use.
is like, Tracy, you can totally develop the C41 yourself. It's not that hard, but I have yet to do that. So, but I do have a changing bag too, so I could have done that as well. Or just send the whole thing back in.
You could just go back out into the cemetery in the middle of the night and do it there.
There we go.
I have been in a cemetery in the middle of the night and never been as freaked out as I was the other day with that whole thing. I was just totally flipped out about that one statue that would not photograph.
The ghost didn't want you to do it.
Spooky.
All right, we could go back.
We had a couple questions from the audience. Dara Wishengrad is asking if they can use color 35mm film, or does it have to be black and white?
So we actually sent you color, I think. So yes, in a pinhole camera, you can absolutely use color. I was using black and white because it was what I could develop myself upstairs. So it was just a matter of me trying to, quicken the process so that I would have something to show tonight.
Okay, good to know. And then George Joblove is inspired, and they're thinking about putting a pinhole in a body cap for my Sony A7 to do a digital pinhole photography. Have you tried this?
I haven't, but I had several people, when I put online that I was doing this project, I had several people email me that they do that, and it seems to be a fun, acceptable way to do it. So do it and send us the images and let us see what you come up with.
Yeah, there's some commentary in chat though, just to be careful, because you're going to get dust all over your sensor.
You'll see the dust.
Yeah, be wary of that.
You'll see the dust way better with a pinhole because you're closed down so much, your exposure will take much longer, or you'll need a lot more ISO. So what ends up happening is you get to see a lot more information, including all the dust on your sensor, which you won't see normally when you are taking a photograph, because it'll all be out of focus. But all of a sudden, all this stuff behind the lens cap will be in focus. So beware. You'll find all kinds of creepy stuff inside the dust.
And it won't work well if you just put a pinhole through your plastic cap. It actually works better if you cut a big hole and then tape one of those metal pieces with the pin on it, because it's just a thinner
There are
plane.
people that actually sell caps already drilled too, so that might be another
And
route.
they put metal plates and do exactly what Steven said, punch it out to so it's a perfectly round diameter, which is also very important. And yeah, we'd recommend that. Cool. Let's get
Robert, sorry, Snehal, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that speaking of winding it back up in a changing bag, what that could mean is, you know, I'm getting groceries at home now, like through Amazon and stuff, and they come in these like silver bags. That's not a bad idea in a pinch, because when you close the bag, like in a dark room, like in the bathroom, there's not going to be any light going inside there. So if you want to just do it in a pinch, grab one of these bags, or grab any kind of backpack that you have that's nice, solid black on the inside. Go and turn off the lights in the bathroom or in the closet or something. Just go and do it in there. It's only going to take you a few seconds. Pry open the back and rewind the film. It won't be that hard.
A couple more questions from the audience. Robert Franco is asking, on a bright sunny day, do you have a ballpark starting place for how long to make the exposure with a color film?
Oh my gosh, it's going to be really quick.
So it says right here for ISO 100, you would use 2 to 3 seconds at a bright sunny day. So an
So you're
ISO
like half of that?
200 would be 4 to 6 seconds, and ISO 400 would be 12 to 15 seconds, because it's all halves and doubles. So if you, in this case, it's not doubling the exposure, it's actually quadrupling. So that's why it would be 12 to 15 seconds if you were using, oh, sorry, I take it all back. I take it all back. It's the other way around. So hold on a second. If it was ISO 200, it'd be 1 to 2 seconds. And if it was ISO 400, it'd be about half a second to quarter of a second. So
I was like, man, my math is really screwed up.
Okay, that's on
I'm literally sitting out thinking, oh my gosh, I totally messed up the way I thought about this.
No, that was totally on me. You have to realize that on a bright sunny day, that means like you're outside, nothing in the way. There's no like screen door or nothing like that. It's just bright, clean, bright sunny day. But then you got to gauge it from there, because everything changes from there. So there is a gauge, and you notice that as soon as there's like some cloud cover, but if you go to like the nighttime, it's 10 minutes, you know, for 100 ISO. When they say nighttime, they actually mean like a really bright night sky. It's not typical darkness, not California polluted LA. It's night sky.
So for me, nighttime with the NAN light on the 420 app that I was using, it was literally 13 hours. So it vary depending on what you're doing.
In this camera, it could be like
Pinhole will answer all of those questions. That it was a great website.
And I think your idea of taking the metering from the camera angle, if you want to do that, if you're just doing like a sky or landscape, or if your subject matter, you want to get the reflective light from the subject matter. I found that
almost every time that I experimented, that from the camera was my better exposure every time.
Makes sense.
My reflective instead of my incidental.
Just one more question from Dara Wishengrad again. Tracy, could you detail what you mean when you're saying scan? I think. Oh,
I literally took my prints. Like this is the print of the flowers, and I put it in my scanner. I have an old-fashioned scanner here that does copies and scans, and that was what I was talking about, just so that I could make it, because I tried to get these flat, but they're not really perfectly flat. So with my camera, it wasn't photographing them very well. So with my scanner, I thought it would flatten them out a little bit better. But I don't have a real professional scanner, so they're a little bit blurry. They look much better in the actual prints.
Cool.
I know that there was one or two others that I really wanted to show you. Like this is the flowers that And look how
That looks
much
even
detail
better.
is there.
It's even better.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
gorgeous.
it's really sharp. I didn't imagine that I would have gotten anything that sharp. So this, oh, this is the freaky, the crypt. Look how sharp that is.
Yeah, you can see the
Yeah.
details and the
Yeah.
wrought iron, you know,
Somebody said there was like a goat up in the top corner from the detail, from the way the
yeah,
swirl.
it looks.
So,
It's wonderful,
so it was
Tracy.
this was definitely a fun project, and I'm not going to stop. I really enjoyed it. Although my family wants the, I'm going to share my screen again real quick. Hold on, let me go back to Zoom. Okay, share and go to play. And I think you and I have already covered all of that. What we got? That was that spool that came apart.
Can you go back again, Tracy? What was that last slide of text?
Oh, it was, you and I covered all of that. It was pretty
okay.
much the turns and the key, and sending, the manufacturer suggests sending the whole camera back to the processor, but if you do that, then you've lost your camera. So that's the only problem with whether or not you get the camera back. And then I think I said, make sure you've got clamps ready to go. And, you know, just don't expect any of this to be perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about the journey of how we get there. And then lastly, I know we had a lot of questions about developing. This was my little makeshift darkroom on top of my washing machine. So just 3 5x7 trays. You know, I had my measuring devices, some of them downstairs, some of them upstairs, and lots of tongs, trying not to cross-contaminate. And in the dark, I kept losing the tongs and grabbing more tongs. So I ended up with tongs all over the place. It was never one pair of tongs because I could never quite find the tongs. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. So, and go just, I wanted to show you the chemicals they're sitting behind me.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what you have is those 3 trays, and you're going from one tray to the other, right? With the chemicals?
Yep. So the first one is the developer. I was using Ilford Multigrade is as the developer, and again, I was using that because I was using the Ilford paper. And
could you hold that back up? It didn't get in focus that last time.
Sorry.
For some reason. Maybe back it away just a little bit. Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I think you had the back. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Multi-grade. Okay. Nice.
Okay. And so that was the, so you start with the multi-grade, and then stop bath is the second part of that. And the multi-grade was about 1.5 minutes for me. The stop bath is 30 seconds. It goes really quickly. And then finally, fixer, I was using rapid fixer so that I could, with this fixer, you don't have to do the water bath quite as long. And then putting them, you know, I have a big laundry tub in there, so I was doing a water bath. For,
so can just to go over again, because I'm going to type it out for everyone. So what's the first one?
The first one is your developer, in which case I was using Ilford Multigrade. And then the second one, are you ready? And it was about 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes in the developer. Second one is Stop Bath, and this is just Ilfo Stop. I just stayed with all Ilford chemicals. And then the third one is the fixer. It's just rapid fixer. And the fixer that you use will determine how long you have to put it in water bath. And water bath is literally just to put the photos, the prints, into running water. And with this fixer, I think it was like 1 minute. And without the fixer, it was like an hour. So, and I live with a very economical guy from the 70s who will 2 seconds into it will go, "Did you leave water running?" So the less time that water was running, the less I had to hear that statement from him. So that was a reason to invest in the rapid fixer. Each one of the bottles of chemicals, you can see they weren't very big. They go anywhere from 1 to 9, 1 to 4, 1 to 19 in ratios. They were each about, you know, between $10 and $13 a bottle, so not super expensive. I will send my expense to Tony on that.
Excellent. Very nice. Yeah, so everyone has the names now in the chat as well.
Any other questions?
I think there was one question that someone was asking at one time, like where you could send your film. I would suggest looking in your local area online for a lab. Usually black and white, not every lab does it. A lot of labs do color because they have a set machine and a process, and it's really automated and it just takes care of it. And they can quickly even scan the film once it's developed. So color is a lot easier for these labs. Black and white is a little bit more specialized and not a lot of people do it. So I go to Sammy's Camera locally in Los Angeles because we have a long relationship, and they still send out their black and white to another lab. So, you know, even they do quite a bit of color themselves. So I would just look around.
Miller's Print Lab does do black and white, and they will scan. And also in Atlanta, there's a place called PPR, Pro Photo Resources, and they will also do black and white.
And in New York, who do we have, Tony?
Well, Tony has offered to do it for us, so we can send it to him.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I was going to say to everybody is if you have a lab that you're familiar with or you want to go out and process yourself, please do, and then send us you can scan and send us the images or get them to us however you would like. Anyone else, what we're going to do is we're going to send a follow-up email to everybody to give you all of the options, whether you scan it yourself, whether you send us the camera or you send us the roll of film. What we're going to do is we're going to take everybody's images and then we're going to put them into a Flickr account so we can share them with everybody as we move forward and see what kind of great images you came up with.
So please send your images in. We really do want to see them.
Yeah. So thank you, Tracy. I appreciate your time today. And man, I'll tell you what, it's been a heck of a chat. I don't know what you Cine people do all the time, but my fingers have been going nuts. Thank you to everybody for your participation. It's been a really rousing time online here with everybody. We are looking forward to seeing what images you come up with. It's pretty exciting. Everybody take a deep breath when they start their camera construction. You can see that Stephen Balsley is still recovering from his time putting together his camera. But we want to make sure that everybody comes out the other side A-okay, and then we get some great images. So Snehal, do you have any closing words for us?
Yeah, we just had a few more questions come in at the very end. Let's see if we can get through them.
Yeah.
And Andrew was asking, what film scanners do you recommend? You can do flatbed, especially if you know, you've got a lab to process your film and cut it. So remember to ask them to cut it if you're going to do that, and then use a film guide in your flatbed scanner. So a lot of the older Canon, and that's the thing, some of these older Canon scanners are really good and they're back on eBay. So, you know, go into the forums and look for what the film junkies are saying. You can get a great deal on a $200 scanner that will perform like $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 scanner. So go for that. Or you can film scan with a drum roll scanner or drum scanner. Those are way more expensive and they're specialized and usually at labs, but there's another way to go as well. Or you can, any lab that already scans film, they'll probably be able to help you out. So you could just take your rolls of film in, they'll only charge you for the scanning instead of everything else. What else was there? People put some recommendations for where to go to labs. Yes, Richard Labs in LA is fantastic. I've gone to them many, many times. There's also the Dark Room in San Clemente. They're going to reopen soon, it looks like. But yeah, you can look online, I think. Aside from that, I just want to thank everyone that's involved in Sundance Film Festival, like that has a film there that I want to make sure that we highlight that that's our onus for kind of celebrating this weekend was, you know, because there's a film festival going on and we know there's cinematographers that are involved that, you know, of course, are fans of ZEISS, and we want to make sure that we had some kind of celebrations going on. We're not an official event, but we are kind of like parallel celebrating. So for those of you filmmakers that are at Sundance with the project or have been over the last, you know, whatever years of your career, congratulations to you for doing that, for that achievement. And for those of you that are trying to look for some inspiration, hopefully this Pinhole Photography thing will help inspire your work in the future and, you know, flex your artistic muscle. But yeah, Tony, I think it was great. Thank you for putting this together, man.
My pleasure.
And Kat for organizing and getting everyone on board. Stephen for helping build and doing the tech stuff. And Tracy, I don't know, I can't thank you enough. This was fantastic, and we learned so much from you. You're such a wonderful teacher, and we're really lucky to have you as an ambassador for ZEISS.
Thank you very much for those kind words. I appreciate it.
Great. And if there's any other questions, there will be a follow-up email, as Tony mentioned, so you can ask away. But thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Kat, we have an event coming up on Friday. Is that correct?
We do. We are back with our live conversations. It's our first one of 2021, and we're interviewing Martin Rue. He's the cinematographer of The Midnight Sky with George Clooney on Netflix, and the Hulu series Catch 22. So we go live at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Friday.
This session will be replayed on our YouTube channel, ZEISS Cinematography Americas. So please check it out whenever you get a chance. Oh, sorry, I take that back. ZEISS Lenses Americas. ZEISS Lenses Americas YouTube channel is where this video will be later this week. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks, Tracy.
Oh, you're welcome.